There was a noise like a partridge. There was a thud. There was silence. Smith reached up very slowly, without moving his head, and touched the axe blade. It wasn't on the axe anymore. It had buried itself in the door by his head, taking a tiny nick out of his ear. Granny stood looking slightly blurred from hitting an absolutely immovable object, and stared at the stub of wood in her hands.
Right, she stuttered. In that case.
No, said Smith firmly, rubbing his ear. Whatever it is you're going to suggest, no, leave it. I'll pile some stuff around it. No one will notice. Leave it. It's just a stick.
Just a stick?
Have you got any better ideas? One that won't take my head off? She glared at the staff, which appeared not to notice.
Not right now,
she admitted.
But you just give me time.
All right, all right. Anyway, I've got things to do. Wizards to bury. You know how it is. Smith took a spade from beside the back door and hesitated. Granny?
What?
Do you know how wizards like to be buried?
Yes.
Well, how? Granny Weatherwax paused at the bottom of the stairs.
Reluctantly.
Later, night fell gently as the last of the world's slow light flowed out of the valley, and a pale, rain-washed moon shone down in a night studded with stars. And in a shadowy orchard behind the forge, there was the occasional clink of a spade or a muffled curse. In the cradle upstairs, the world's first female wizard dreamed of nothing much. The white cat lay half asleep on its private ledge near the furnace. The only sound in the warm, dark forge was the crackle of the coals as they settled down under the ash. The staff stood in the corner, where it wanted to be, wrapped in shadows that were slightly blacker than shadows normally are. Time passed, which basically is its job. There was a faint tinkle and a swish of air. After a while, the cat sat up and watched with interest. Dawn came. Up here in the Ram Tops, dawn was always impressive, especially when a storm had cleared the air. The valley occupied by Badass overlooked a panorama of lesser mountains and foothills, coloured purple and orange in the early morning light that flowed gently over them, because light travels in a dilatory pace in the disk's vast magical field. And far off, the great plains were still a puddle of shadows. Even further off, the sea gave an occasional distant sparkle. In fact, from here you could see right to the edge of the world. That wasn't poetic imagery, but plain fact, since the world was quite definitely flat and was, furthermore, known to be carried through space on the backs of 4 elephants, that in turn stood on the shell of the great Artuan, the great sky turtle. Back down there in Badass, the village is waking up. The smith had just gone into the forge and found it tidier than it had been for the last 100 years, with all the tools back in their right places, the floor swept, and a new fire laid in the furnace. He was sitting on the anvil, which had just been moved right across the room, and is watching the staff, and is trying to think. Nothing much happened for 7 years, except that one of the apple trees in the smithy's orchard grew perceptibly taller than the others, and was frequently climbed by a small girl with brown hair, a gap in her front teeth, and the sort of features that promised to become, if not beautiful, then at least attractively interesting. She was named Escarina, for no particular reason other than her mother liked the sound of the word. And although Granny Weatherwax kept a careful watch on her, she failed to spot any signs of magic whatsoever. It was true that the girl spent more time climbing trees and running around shouting than little girls normally did, but a girl with 4 older brothers still at home can be excused a lot of things.